Islam, Moors.
Islam.
Let's get our prayer up. 5 on the left, 2 on the right. Allah, the Father of the universe.
Allah, the Father of the universe.
Father of love.
Father of love.
Truth. Peace. Freedom. And justice. Allah is my protector.
Allah is my protector.
My guide.
And
my salvation. By night. And by day. Through His holy prophet. Noble Drew Ali.
Islam.
You have your admin up there? You have your admin functions? Admin? Could you just find the readings? I forgot my book one. They're in there. They should be in there. Islam to all the Moors worldwide? Yeah, thanks. Peace and love. We're just going to start off with our readings to be read every meeting. To be proclaimed in every meeting. I am glad to know that I have a few faithful Moors among you all, and I desire for them to know the truth and the divine truth. There is a host of jealousy about me and the movement now by the same people on our side of the nation that claim it was only a joke and unreal. But now, since they have found out from the government officials and the nations of the earth that this is the only sole foundation that all Asiatics must depend upon for their earthly salvation as American citizens, they are working every scheme they can to disqualify me so they themselves may take charge of the situation. I have notified all these things to you long ago in the past. It is through the faithful Moors that attribute to the movement and uplifting funds. The ones that paid their divine respect to me and the movement will be remembered. That is why I am calling upon all faithful Moors to increase their faithfulness to me, your prophet, and your divine Moorish movement. I need finance and I need it bad. Never before have I needed finance as badly as I do at present, that I may shove aside the discord that is facing the nation. It all comes through jealousy because of my fame and nobility. The nations of the world will not recognize the movement without me, the prophet, being head. It has been proven by my works, which I have performed in the last few months, because I was at the governor's inauguration to represent the Moorish Divine and National Movement, and I will be at the inauguration of President Hoover for the same cause. Noble Drew Ali. So there's a lot of people that are coming into the movement, and really the rate is alarming at the amount of people waking up. And today we're just going to discuss a little bit about the nationality card, because we realize that we're under pressure, as Asiatics in America, in North America. We understand that in order for us to have any type of life out here, it is not going to be done being under the jurisdiction of other people who do not have our best interests at heart. In realizing that there's this paradox that we're born into, this catch-22, it must be clear to Moors that are proclaiming their nationality, have proclaimed their nationality, and will eventually proclaim their nationality, that Noble Ali did something of a very divine nature when he started giving Moors nationality cards to prove who they are, right? It must be understood that the card is an example of, the card is a representation of the being, right? A hammer is useless if the guy attached to the hammer doesn't know how to use it, right? The mode of conveyance, even though they got, virtual drivers, stuff like that, cars drive themselves or whatever, but the individual behind the wheel has to know how to use what's in their vicinity before they can say, let's go out there on the highway and put the pedal to the metal and all that, right? If he's not clear as to how to use this thing, weapon, instrument, tool, whatever. If the individual is not aware of how to use the thing that they have, then that thing will continue to hinder them. It will never be something that they can use that is going to have a benefit to them, right? This is why you hear about so many Moors. They don't want nothing to do with Moorish nationality because that don't work and stuff like that. When they start talking like that, you already know that individual probably had some misteachings or some misinterpretation or some misconcept of nationality card. And when you hear people talk about, when you bring up you're a Moor to them, and then the next place that they go is, well, what's being a Moor gonna do for me? You already know that these people are ignorant to the certain facts, because if someone has a card that identifies themselves, the power of that card doing what it's supposed to do is based on the individual that has it. So if you have a credit card and you go somewhere with that card and you give it to the guy, and the guy takes it and says, okay, let me see something that's relative to this so I can prove that this is yours. Right? Before they had chip and punch in your number and all that stuff, you had to show something else to prove that that's yours. And if you can't show something, then you can't use it. You know what I mean? Nothing personal, but you need to prove, right, that you're qualified to use this, right? So we want to first qualify a few things. We got the dictionary there. If we can get what identity is. And identification. Remember that we're relating this to Noble Drew Ali, and why did he have this brilliant idea to give these people classified as Negro, Black, Colored something called an identification card. And not only does the identification card identify them, but it also qualifies where their allegiance lies with regard to their identity. Because anybody can give a card of identity, right? It's not anybody. You go to a library, they give you an identification card. You go to so-called driver's license, whatever, they give you an identification card. You go to Walmart, they give you something. You go wherever, TTC, they give you something. Bus people, whoever. right? Guy has to drive a cab, he has a card from the cab people that has nothing to do with anything other than the cab people. He's not going to take that, stuff that he has at the back of the seat and then go around to other people about, yeah, this is my identity. That's strictly for his taxi service or whatever, right? So identity.
Identity. In the law of evidence, sameness. The fact that a subject, person, or thing before a court is the same as it is represented, claimed, or charged to be.
All right. So, once again, identity.
In the law of evidence, sameness.
All right, one sec. So, in the law of evidence, so Noble Drew Ali is making our identity evidence, right? It's not just, he's just doing this just because he has an organization and you need membership to it, right? He's doing this because it has to be evident what your identity is. You can't claim to have an identity, but then it's based on hearsay or heresy. It has to be based in evidence, right? And then remember that anytime you read definitions, or if you read books, whatever, anytime you read anything and they say the term quote unquote court, in your mind you have to think outside. You have to think contracting with people. You have to think signing things. You have to think, don't think some building somewhere where they gave you a ticket and you have to go there to pay. When you read court. So you see court, know that a court is an open space that doesn't have a roof. A court is place where they gotta draw lines and then somebody might have a ball on it, somebody might have whatever, it is a court. That building down there, that's not a court. As soon as we think that that's a court and then none of these other things are courts, then we're not dealing with evidence. We're dealing with hearsay. Because somebody said that those buildings are courts. It's not an actual fact that those things are courts. Somebody said they're courts and we just went with it because, as Negro, black, colored, we don't know any better. So we go with it. We go with, identity being hearsay. We go with identity being, whatever we say it is, that's what it is. Well, if you don't do this part first, right? If your identity is not evidence of sameness, if your identity is not evidence of sameness, then you more than likely you're running some type of fraud. And the individuals who are, for lack of a better term, adjudicating against people claiming whatever identity that they are, they know whether it's hearsay or evidence, because the lesson that's been the theme for the past couple weeks in just building with Mars or whatever is that law and history are the same. There's no separation. So for somebody to tell you that, yeah, we're the ancient Kemet and all this stuff, but then they're not going to recognize law. They say, oh yeah, that's white man stuff. But then when you go to chematology or whatever like that, you see, Ma'at holding the scales, which is law. But they'll bypass, they'll say that, oh, law didn't come from our people, law came from the Europeans, so they're not going to follow that. They don't want law dictionaries, they don't want to do anything of that nature. But from a historical perspective, they'll accept all the European stuff that European says about Asiatics or whatever, and who founded what and all that, right? So, law and history are relative. So your identity has to be evidence of sameness with somebody else historically. Because we're modern people. So if we're saying I am John, then if you're that, then okay, well, let's go check the records and see if there was people named John that qualified to be your historical representative. Right? As Moors, we have historical representation that is undeniable. It's not something that we have to prove to people, right? Blacks have to prove that Black Lives Matter. That's why they go lie down in the street. That's why they're always marching, picking all over the place, because clearly Black lives don't matter. And they have to prove that it matters, right? Gays have to prove that they have rights. Because if they had rights, they wouldn't be out there trying to make a claim that, you know, we're people too, and gay is the new black and all this type of stuff. They wouldn't have to go there if it was an actual legitimate thing that already exists. Nobody, no argument about it. Most people get acknowledged or whatever. Now, gays did whatever they're supposed to do. They paid their dues or whatever, which is why they have their little privileges right now, that they can go get, you know, shut Young Street down, have their gay parade, and they can shut down this thing, and they can, you know what I mean, have, you know, the premier be their representation, right?
That Kathleen win.
Kathleen,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's their representation in government,
Yeah.
so-called government.
It's deep, so.
Yeah, that's their individual. Where anything gay or whatever, we're gonna go to her because she's our whatever. Because she's the one that came out or whatever.
Right.
Anybody else, there's more in there, but people are playing silent, people playing spook at the door. Right? Because it's not that openly accepted. If we're openly accepted, then all these people will be coming out the closet. You'll be surprised people out there who are gay or whatever. But being that they're still in the closet and all that, clearly their stuff isn't respected yet. Being that these people have to go march and picket for rights, clearly whoever you claim that you are as an identity is not legitimate. Because gay is not an identity. Right? Black's not an identity. African's not an identity. These are things that people assume, classify them as a being. Right? Continue on. So evidence, sameness.
In the fact that a subject, person, or thing before a court is the same as it is represented, claimed, or charged to be. In patent law, such sameness between two designs, inventions, combinations, etc., as will constitute the one an infringement of the patent granted for the other.
Okay, now, when we talk about the patents and identity, we'll go back to so-called black inventors, right? All the black inventors have European names on them. There's not no black inventor that has Asiatic name. Well, probably except the brother with the internet. M. Ghali or whatever his name is, the guy who the Ghanaian or whatever that helped create the internet, right? And people from, you know, outside of North America that are Asiatic, they're gonna have some name from wherever they come from. But these so-called people that are classified as the black inventors, All of them got European name. So read the patent part again.
In patent law, such sameness between two designs, inventions, combinations, etc., as will constitute the one an infringement of the patent granted for the other.
So Negro black color person says, I created something, right? And I want to get a patent. And then the people say, okay, we're going to give you a patent for whatever. Send us the whatever, you know what I mean? We're going to send you the papers. Once you get your patent papers, then you're official, right? Patents deal with inventions. Patents deal with creations of things. Negro black colored is a thing, which they don't have any attachment to property, because things can't own things. This bookshelf doesn't own the books because they're on it. The bookshelf has no jurisdiction to own the books, right? So Negro black color people saying that they have a patent for something that they created, 99% of the time lose, because one, they're not who they say that they are, which disqualifies the patent. But then because it's in the name of somebody who's not them, the patent could live after the fact. So if you go research all these so-called black inventors, you'll find out that none of them get credibility for what they created. Now there's some type of acknowledgement or recognition that there's these people called black inventors. But they didn't have that during slavery time or whatever. That's information that came out of people who were studying quote-unquote African history, and they found out, all these so-called things. This wasn't something open that they were talking about that, traffic light was created by, and then whatever, and they weren't talking about these things. It's only people doing research that brought these things to light, or we would have no idea that there's such a thing as our people inventing things out there that people use today, which, because of their fraud, even today they're not recognized as being the creators of certain things. Every single refrigerator should have a little thing on the side or something like that saying that, so and so created this or whatever like that in whatever year, blah blah blah. Right? Whatever it is. Every traffic light in the world. Every elevator should have something in there. Well, they got a little plaque saying that, this elevator was made and whatever, it was serviced 5 years ago, whatever like that. They should have a plaque in there saying who made it. But if we allow others to do what we should be doing for ourselves, then nothing's going to get done for us. Which is why Noble Jwali came and corrected our identity. Because it's our lack of identity that has us where we are right now. It's not lack of anything else. It's not a the white man did something, man, all that stuff. It has nothing to do with none of that. It has to do with we were detached from knowing what our identity was, knowing what our evidence is going to be when in some type of controversy. Because remember that identity ties us right back to status, being the first issue. Who are you? And who are those people that you're dealing with? And if nobody is putting their identity on the record, then nobody has a claim. And if you are putting your identity on the record, it better be legitimate. It better not be some type of corporate governmental thing that the assumption is that's identity. Because remember, identity is evidence. So if your identity is supposed to be something evident, then your real identity is you. Your real identity is not papers or cards or instruments. Your real identity is you. And secondary to you is some card or papers or whatever to further prove what your makeup is as a living being, right? Now, subject, person, or thing that's making a claim of this is my identity, being that this is evidence, you could pull that one up too. Being that it's evidence, the identity, you have to know. Think about it again from the perspective of history and law go together. So if you're going to say that you're Kemetic, that's your identity? Okay, prove it with something. Well, I don't need to prove it because, Ra has my nationality or whatever. I don't need to prove it because, that doesn't mean nothing. Okay, but if it doesn't mean nothing, then you got a car out there. You know what I mean? You got a car out there, you got somewhere that you live at, you have things out there that require identity before you can even get those things. So what identity are you putting down when you're engaging society? And again, majority of the time with our people, they've accepted the fraudulent identity that's not them. And they've been exercising with it. They have never been challenged on, hey, why you guys call yourself that or whatever, because most of the time, once they're in a position of not knowing who they are, they become, booty for somebody else. Once they don't know who they are, they become a target. Once they don't know who they are messing with the evidence. And as if you have the evidence there.
Evidence. Any species of proof or probative matter legally presented at the trial of an issue by the act of parties and through the medium of witnesses, records, documents, concrete objects, etc., for the purpose of inducing belief in the minds of the court or jury as to their contention.
Okay. So there has to be some perspective of proof, right? There has to be some perspective of proof when we're looking at or making claims of identity. If you can't prove it, which is evidence, then more than likely there's some type of fraudulent activity going on, because this is supposed to be provable. Without a shadow of a doubt, this is supposed to be provable. If this is not provable, then there's no claim. And remember again that it goes both ways. So if just like we use the notary, for example, right? The notary, when you go with your document to the notary is going to say, do you got something to prove who you are? Because him as a notary he's putting his name down, verifying some act that you're doing. But it has nothing to do with him. So he wants to make sure, he wants to see evidence, he wants to see proof of the identity before he puts his name on something, where if something goes down and then he has to defend that he knows, based on proof, who the fraudulent party is. Okay? When we go back to 1929 and Noble Drew Ali leaving form, and then we get to 33, and then they come with their New Deal in order to try to quote unquote save the government or whatever like that, and they created corporations. That's when identification became something that everybody now is looking at as a means of qualifying who's who. Because prior to this, in the Americas, it was only Asiatics and Europeans here. Right? That's all it was. Either you're Asiatic, which means that you're either from here, you could be from Asia, you could be from so-called Africa, whatever, but you would know who was who without having something to show or whatever like that. You would know who they are.
Just off the visual.
Just off how they appear. And with the connotative language comes connotative identities. With the New Deal comes the New World Order and things that go with that. Population control, depopulation, deforestation, whatever else that they're doing out here in order to maintain their status quo of power that they really don't have, because they're really the minority as their connotative identity. They're really the minority. They're not the majority. Right? But the minority has people think that they're the majority, and then the majority, who are Asiatics, think that they're a minority. And then they create this hearsay jurisdiction, and then they try to live in the hearsay jurisdiction and then complain about things that are happening to them in the hearsay jurisdiction, when it's only happening to them because there's evidence that their identity is a fraud. Because all these people who claim to be so-called government or whatever like that, they know about Henry Turner versus United States. They know that there was no Louisiana Purchase. They know that there was no change of gold from one individual to another individual for this jurisdiction called Louisiana. Right? So everything goes back to what it was. There's nothing to bring up about that, well, they don't have, and there's nothing to bring up. And then the case happened where Henry Turner won to prove that the United States doesn't have jurisdiction in the Americas. Right? As time went on, the practices of identification became more colored or lacked evidence. As time goes, the identification became more colored, more stuff got added as far as the identification, and all these things that they kept adding lacked evidence, especially with Asiatics, because in identity, your nationality has to be qualified as well. Not just how you look, not just that, sameness of this subject, person, or thing. There has to be certain criteria to qualify the identity. One of the criteria that disqualifies identity, or that disqualifies identification of identity, is expiry dates. If there's an identification with an expiry date, that does not qualify as identification.
Because you yourself can't expire.
Because you can't expire. Right? So these are the things that, Noble Drew Ali was presenting in giving Moors nationality cards. And telling Moors that your nationality card is going to change in your pocket. Because they had this illusion, they still do today, that the place called Moorish Science Temple of America, the paper thing that you get from them in 2015 is your identity card. When that's not an identity card. Because evidence, that can't be used as evidence of identity. That can be used as evidence of membership to something. Right? Which is why he said that it's going to change in your pocket. Because there's no way that today in 2015 Moors should have an identity card that is paper or laminated or whatever, but when we go out there, ain't nobody else have anything that's paper or laminated. Everybody has something that's an actual card, hard card. Right? Nobody out there has, unless they're a member of some type of group or whatever like that, where they just make some little crap. Nobody that calls themselves Moors should have something that's not a hard card as identification. Now don't get it twisted, right? I'm not saying that you should discard your laminated stuff, but you're not going to use this as norm. You're not going to get stopped and give this, right? When you have this, right? It doesn't make sense to give the laminated paper if you have the hard card. Even if the laminated one has the picture on it and the hair color, eye color, height, weight, national domicile, ancestral estate, mailing location, the autograph, thumbprint, whatever, it's not, because it is going to cause confusion, like Noble Drew Ali said it's going to cause, by flashing it around, especially at Europeans who have no position. The only way a European has a position is if they're with Asiatic. If they're not with Asiatic, a European with a European, they don't have no claim of anything. They have no national domicile. They have no landmass that they can go to, say, yeah, that's my land or whatever like that, right? Their status is, on the same level as Negro black colored people, right? Just go ask all the Syrians and all these people around the world, right, who have some fraudulent identity because they don't want to honor their ancient foremothers and forefathers who were dark-skinned people. They think they're the founders of stuff when they ain't found anything around here. And now they're getting it, just like how Negro black colored people getting it, just like how so-called Jews were getting it. Everybody around the world is getting it right now. Just because their evidence to prove their identity is flawed. Because history and law go together. So if you're going to say that you're, if you use Syrian, if you're going to say that you're Syrian, but not recognize the Syrian, from Sirius A, Sirius B, or whatever, then you're probably running some kind of fraud, because you're obviously not the original Syrian. Because a Syrian comes from out the universe somewhere, where they even got telescope to see where Sirius is from here. And then we can go down the line of all the different people that claim that they're whatever. Jews say that they're whatever. No, that's not their identity. Hitler already proved that that's not their identity. Right? Now they parade around with it like it's identity. But during Hitler's time, that was the last thing you wanted to be. Openly call yourself Jew or whatever. You ain't calling yourself no Jew or whatever like that. Especially when he was teaching about Jews are the synagogue of Satan and all that type of stuff. You know what I mean? Because what were they doing? Using some fraudulent identity in order to gain jurisdiction in a jurisdiction that they can't make any claim in as quote-unquote Jews. Because the real Jews are Ethiopia, and Germany's not Ethiopia, so what are you guys making claims over here? But they stuck with it until somebody said, okay, you know, there's some guys over there that, I don't know, some land over there called Palestine. It's the ancient land, you know, we'll just give you that as your land. Then the people there, because they've been saying that they're Palestinian for so long, they don't know no Palestinian. That's not their ancient foremothers and forefathers. It's more ancient than Israel, but there's stuff before Palestine that was run by Asiatics. So everybody right now is under this this identity issue, and we have even Moors now. There's even Moors now saying that Moors shouldn't be bringing Europeans into the fold. If we don't bring them into the fold, then they're going to be easy pickings for Rothschilds and Bilderbergers and whoever else is out there, just like Negro black colored people. Because Drew Ali said that he came for the nations. And nations is plural, and nations includes anybody out there who says that they have a nationality. Anybody who says that they have a nationality, they can take Noble Drew Ali's program and apply it to themselves. Like anybody. If you don't have a nationality, that's where Moor Science Temple of America comes in, because the only people that are stateless or nationless are Negro, black, colored, African, whatever they want to call themselves, Caribbean people, West Indian, whatever. Those are the only really stateless people. Even people who are under corporate governments in other places of the world, they are standing up for their right as citizens before those corporate governments took over. And that's what they're doing. When you see, you go online and you find out about Pizio. If you find out about other nations of the world that have issues with their government, and then they say that they're gonna strike or picket or whatever like that. Everybody's going out to go rally or whatever. You see these rallies in different, compared to here, you go across the world and you find out that people are mad at their governments across the world. When they march or picket, everybody's going to take these people out of power. Not just some people. Everybody's going. Why? Because everybody knows that there's a problem. The Greeks knew there was a problem. That, hold on a second, you guys are going to go take bailout packages from people who we know that if you take the bailout package, you're going to put us in further debt. We don't want no bailout package. And everybody in Greece said, you know what? We're not even buying that stuff. You guys aren't getting nobody's vote if you implement that. And what those people do, all right, I guess we're going to have to go with what the people say. Because why? Because the people are the government. But the people have to know that before they can proclaim or be what they're saying that they are. And majority of time, they're not. Majority of time, they're in a lack of evidence, a lack of identity. They can't prove who it is that they are, but they want people to respect them as whatever identity that they're putting. Again, when history and law are relative and the world knows, the world could go to the Negro Acts in South Carolina and they'll tell you that the slave codes don't apply to Moors, Egyptians, or whatever like that. But then these people aren't going to say that they're Moors. When the slave codes tell you, the same slave codes that they're using today, tell people that if you have the identity as a Moor, slave codes can't apply to you. It's in the acts that they used against so-called Negro black colored people to keep them in servitude. Right? Look up Moor in the law dictionary, it'll tell you that it's connected to bailiffs. And then everybody goes to court around here and they're going to see bailiffs there. And doing what? Carrying out the law of that place called a court. Right? Even though that's corporate law. Their position is a Moor. Their duty is to enforce the law. And if you're not going to go by law in here, then we'll get you out of here. No different than what the Moors did historically. Everywhere that they went, you don't want to adhere by the principles here? Alright. We got somewhere for you to go. You have thing there?
An officer in the Isle of Man who summons the courts for the several sheetings. The office is similar to the English bailiff of 100.
So from a historical, lawful perspective, the identity of Moor is equal to 100.
The office is similar to the English bailiff of 100.
Right? The English bailiff of 100. So 100 bailiffs is equal to one Moor. That's what European says. That's European law book or whatever like that. You know, black guys talk. You know, yeah, this white man stuff. Okay, the white man says that a Moor is equivalent to 100 bailiffs. Right? What's the black guy equivalent to? Slave. Negro equivalent to? Slave. What's African equivalent to? Slave. They have no perspective on that identity being attached to something as legitimate as a bailiff that we see today. And we know the power of the office of the bailiff. It's not like we don't know. We know the power of the office of the bailiff. That position of power comes from the identity of the Moors. Not the identity of Africans, not the identity of black people, not the identity of West Indians, Moors. South Carolina Negro Acts tells people that Moors are the ones that are not subject to these acts. That's why the sundry free Moors in South Carolina made their claim. They made their claim that we don't want to be tried under the Negro Acts because we're under the jurisdiction of Morocco. Don't even tie us to the Negro Acts. And what did the court say? All right, you're free. And that wasn't the court giving them freedom. That was them stating their claim. And the question comes up, who has superior claim? corporate, foreigners, or Aboriginal Indigenous people. Aboriginal Indigenous people all the time. But we got to the stage where we've adopted so many identities that we are literally, as a people, lost in the sauce right now. We don't even know what our identity is. And when it's presented in hard card form, so people could see that, oh, it's legitimate, we're not black guys. They say, but black guys can't show you black ID. Kemetic guy is not going to show you Kemetic ID. Rastafarians, they don't have no Rastafarian ID. Hebrew Israelites don't have no Hebrew Israelite ID. Nobody, as far as the liberation of so-called our people, other than Moors, are going to show you an ID and put it down to prove that that's who we are. Which means we're not dealing with hearsay. Hearsay is irrelevant, and people who think that it's hearsay are, like we're saying, either they're agents, they work for the other side, or they're the biggest cowards. Because again, we put the challenge out there to all those individuals that claim that they're from some school of thought or whatever. Show me your ID. We asked the Hebrews, where's your stuff? Oh, we don't need that. Yahweh has our nationality card. Talking about. But you're out here engaging society. You have to be using some form of identification if you're engaging society out here. You can't say that you know I'm Kemetic, but license doesn't apply to me because I'm Kemetic or whatever. No, license applies to you. If you can't show me that your Kemetic ID, then license applies to you. If you can't show me something equivalent or something opposite of what it is that was presented to you to be your identification by the foreign slave master inquisitionists, then more than likely you work for those people, or you're just a coward, because anybody with common sense, if you realize, well, damn, I've been calling myself something wrong for the past 50 years, the next thing is, what do I call myself? In order so I can actually now live. What do I call myself? Or, just like what you were saying, Lex, with, well, I don't care, whatever I'm doing right now, I reserve my rights on it till I figure this thing out.
Straight.
Because that's the only alternative if you're going to be using those things that are contrary to what your real identity is. Right? Any questions? You got identification next?
Identification. Proof of identity. The proving that a person, subject, or article before the court is the very same that he or it is alleged, charged, or reputed to be. As where a witness recognizes the prisoner at the bar as the same person whom he saw committing the crime. Or where handwriting, stolen goods, counterfeit coin, etc. are recognized as the same which once passed under the observation of the person identifying.
So, if you have this and it's driver's license, birth certificate, social security,
Passport.
or social insurance, passport, if your identification is based on any of these, then that means that that's not proof. And it actually proves statelessness. Because all these, well, except this one, and maybe this one. But driver's license, which is where they go most of the time for people, right? Driver's license, passport, like we talked about.
Sometimes health card too, no?
Health card. Right? So as soon as you have one of these, birth certificate, anything like that, classifies you as stateless, and then if they expire, that really means that that's not your identity. Because your identity expires at death. If you're saying that this is your identity, and then this expires, when you go get a new one, you're the same.
Exactly.
Right? But you just created a new stateless being. Because just like all property, right? Just like all property, if it, gets overused or whatever, you're gonna have to replace it, right? But you can't replace your identity. Replacing your identity means that you've transitioned and you're in some other realm of existence or whatever. There's no replacing your identity on the earth plane. You can replace corporate identity every day, all day.
Renewing statelessness.
Right? You can renew your statelessness, but you can't renew who your ancient foremothers and forefathers were, because that is without doubt or contradiction. Right? Now, majority of these stateless instruments, they would classify the people with all caps names, right? These one. Right? Let's put up here corporate. So the corporate identification is going to classify people with all caps names. What else we got on corporate ID?
All caps name.
On expiry.
Number.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do have numbers.
licensing and usage
Some type of number.
Account number, right? Yeah, it's a coding system.
Your signature.
Right? Signature.
And then the description.
Yeah, like the purpose of the card.
And interesting enough, like it have a magnetic strip at the back with information coded into it.
Barcode.
And more importantly today,
Yeah.
right? So any identification that you get,
Doesn't it come with a fee too?
oh,
Forget
that.
How could you forget that? You know?
can't forget that. There's a charge, right? So it classifies you as all caps or in all caps. Right? All these corporate identifications, licenses, etc. Classifies you as all caps. It has an expiry date. It has number as ID, which, remember, they do that
Yep.
in prison. So they're letting you know where they're coming from when they issue a number with that thing, that identification, right? It has signature versus autograph.
What's the difference between a signature and an autograph?
Think about it like if you see some star or whatever out there, what are you gonna ask him for?
An autograph.
Right? Is that the same thing that he puts on his check if he has to sign a check for something?
No,
If he goes to the bank,
Right.
is he gonna give an autograph at the bank or is he gonna give a signature at the bank?
He could give a signature.
More likely he'll give a
Yeah,
signature,
yeah.
right? Because it all goes back to corporate activity. Remember that when they say autograph and they give this, remember that the autograph is representative of who they really want to be,
Right. Who you perceive yourself as.
right?
And signature.
The alter ego.
Yeah. Okay.
Everybody wants to be the alter ego. Ain't nobody want to be a Peter Parker.
Person. Yeah.
Wants to be Peter Parker.
It would make
Peter
sense
Parker's
that
boring.
they'd be different based on the fact that if I gave you my signature, you could duplicate my signature.
Exactly, and do whatever you want with it.
But when you look deep into common sense, you wouldn't give your autograph and your signature wouldn't be the same, right? Because then I just start writing checks under
On
whoever's name,
Right.
because I have a signature, right? So
Right.
yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. So, being that this is who they really are, that's why you have words like authentic,
Right.
right? You know, autograph, right? These two letters right here together have a certain frequency, right?
Nautical.
Right?
Yeah.
Which comes from,
Nautical. Okay.
right?
Sailors.
Okay, which were really us,
Mhm.
right?
What about like audible or audio? Mhm.
Right? What's audio or audio frequency? There's energy behind that. There's energy behind an autograph. That when people get that, they're like, yo, he signed my whatever, he signed it. If somebody get his signature, they wouldn't care,
True.
right?
I get it.
So we go with who we really are, opposed to who we want to be or assume that we are or whatever. Because this is a whole different place, right? And again, we're using the concept of, you know, alter ego, superhero, or whatever like that, to show that there's a lower being that has no say in the matter, and then there's a higher being that should be the one that's dealing with the affairs, right? There should be an acknowledgement or a recognition of, well, you know, that other self, right? What we've been taught is that, you know, don't listen to the little voice or whatever, right? Don't go with your gut feelings. Don't have any hard connection to your higher senses. Just deal with the basic 5 and then you'll be all right, right? When we look at majority of people who have signature, right, or sign, as soon as you put down signature, that's a sign of who you are to the person that's receiving that thing. So when you get these all caps, expired, RFID chip, magnetic chip, no nationality cards. And we say, okay, I want one, and you sign it. That lets those people know that you're open for slavery. Means that you're down with it.
So you're saying it's indicating your nature.
It's indicating that you are below the beast of the field. Because anything that you sign or put your autograph on is a contract. But if the people aren't looking at it like that, like if they're looking at, okay, well, I'm signing this and I'm gonna get then they don't even know what they're doing, right? And then think about it, look at it too with other people. When you go to these places, when you frequent these warehouses that people go to get these instruments, and notice the individuals who take the stuff, fold it up, put it in their pocket, go home with it, and the people who stay there and fill it out and give it in. Right? People have different mindsets of how they're looking at stuff. No different than if we say court. Every single Asiatic is going to go up and, you know, what's your name? Oh yeah, my name is whatever, blah, blah, blah. Anybody from any other country, their stuff is getting adjourned because there's no interpreter. And who knows what happens after, because we don't know what goes on after that. But the fact that they can go up there and say, sorry, I don't understand English or whatever like that, and judge is going to be down with it and say, okay, yeah, come back in 2 weeks, or come back when you get an interpreter or whatever like that. We don't know what happens after that. And more than likely, they have some type of, outside of Canada, United States, whatever that they deal with, when they get in situations or whatever like that, that, you know, quick thing and get them out the way. Right? Because they, even though they have these things, these all caps names or whatever like that, blah, 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 they have a nationality that they can revert to their nationality anytime they feel that they're getting too much pressure from the colonial forces. Whereas we can't do that. But we can if we know that we're Moors. But as Negro black colored people, there's nowhere else for us to go if we're under pressure. Once we get pressured, we get mad, blow up, and then now we're insurgent. And then they have their way of dealing, you know, they're going to bring out their little truck with their sound devices or whatever. They're going to pepper spray children and all that type of stuff. And then our people are just going to, you know, burn down their own stuff and think, oh yeah, you know, we solved something. You know, oh yeah, one guy got off, you know what I mean? One guy got arrested, or he lost his job. Yeah, oh yeah, we did something, right? When there's this stuff going on all the time, violating people, right? So when you make your proclamation that you're not this all capital letters name, which is a fraud, right? That your identity doesn't expire, that you're not a number, that you have an autograph, not a signature, that you have a nationality, and you don't need magnetic strips and chips and stuff like that. Your identification would read American National Identification Card. Substantive birthrights. Appellation, Hudro L. Race, human. Born date, May 1275. Natural person, in full life. Hair, black, eyes, dark brown, height 6'1", weight 153. National domicile, North America. Ancestral estate, North, South, Central, Amexem, Africa, America. Mainland location are Regency or Temple. Nationality, more American, autograph, all rights reserved and retained. Freehold by birthright, primogeniture and inheritance, Aboriginal, Native American, heirs of North America, national people of the land, divine law, United States Code of Law, Title 22, Chapter 2, Section 141, of a general and permanent character, AA 222141, not taxed. Constitution, Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3, treaties. So there's many things that's present on that they're not going to present on any other identification that you get from them.
What was the difference between name and appellation?
We can get try that one. See if those are in there, because we wanna make sure that everything that we put out is presented as what it is, not speculation. So I don't know, everybody just pick one. Somebody do name, somebody do appellation.
Another thing too that's apparent that shows that it's not identification is the fact that if something happens, i.e. to the driver's license and it's suspended, they take it from you.
Right.
So if it's your identification and it's supposed to be yours,
Right.
how can they take it?
Right.
So that in itself lets you know that it's not identification, that they can take it back. If you stop paying child support, for instance, and you say, yo, I'm not paying child support, all of a sudden they confiscate your driver's license and your passport. Shows that it's not your identification. It belongs to them.
Right.
In order for them to have the power to take you.
To take it. Right. So that's why when you are coming into this information, there's going to be a lot of restructuring of your language. So anything that doesn't come from you or your nation shouldn't be identified as mine. Don't you say my passport and my license and my socials? Oh, you want my social? No, you want V card or A card or the corporate whatever. But as soon as you classify it as mine, then you're accepting the individuals who created that's karmic debt. Because they know that they created this thing to do all this fraud. Right? No different than we brought this one up before with 12 years a slave. When they were about to lynch the brother and the brother came out the bushes and the first thing that, yo, you got ID or something like that? What you doing walking around here or whatever? Like, we're gonna put you on the tree if you don't show me ID and here's my stuff. Well, okay, cool, you go about your business. Right? That's the first licenses. That's the first passport. Well, the first passports was us giving Europeans passports to sail in the Mediterranean and all that. So the first passport. The first IDs was us being subjugated and now needing something to prove that we belong to whatever plantation. When slave master says, well, go take something to slave master John down there. You're gonna have to have something so you don't get lynched. Because if you don't have something, then you're a runaway. If you're a runaway, then you're at the discretion of anybody who finds you.
Right. You're subject.
Subject. Right? Name?
Name. Noun. A word or words by which any entity is designated or distinguished from others. A word or words used to describe or elevate, often disparagingly. Names will never hurt you. 3. Verbal representation to or repute as opposed to effective reality. a democracy in name, a police state in fact. 4. General reputation, a bad name, a distinguished reputation, renown. 5. Informal, a famous or outstanding person, a big name. In behalf of, for the sake of, by the authority of, the one's name, belonging into one, not a book in his name. To attach an appellation, 2. To identify by name, call by the right name. To mention, specify, or cite by name. To nominate or appoint to some duty, office, or honor. To specify or fix.
Okay, so from the unabridged dictionary, right, we have these qualifications for name, right? When you look it up in the law dictionary, it tells you that names are Christian.
What does religion have to do?
Because if someone has a name, more than likely they were branded. More than likely it was given to them by somebody. Because remember, this has nothing to do with religion.
Oh, okay.
Right? This is a political status, Christian. Because we know so-called Christianity that they have today was founded by Catholics.
Yeah.
So all those people who claim that they're this, it's just like people who have license and say, oh yeah, it's my ID. That's not real. And then when you break this down further from etymology, a Christian is a Cretan.
What's a Cretan?
Check that out too. You got look up Cretan in there, and you got appellation.
It's not even in there.
All right. You want to check appellations in there?
Get both.
Right. So as soon as you say, oh yeah, and then remember that this is not even in the Bible. That these people say is their holy book and all that stuff. It's not even in there. Right? Which again proves that this doesn't really have anything to do with religion, like how people think that it's tied. So this is actually, Christianity is a political system. Just like Islam is a political system. That's why Islam and Christianity is always fighting. Because they're in competition. Because there's war between them. Now we say Islam's acronym as Moors.
I self-law master.
Right? Which is not the stuff that you see out there people doing salat or whatever. That's not I self-law master.
Right. ISIS and those people.
Right? ISIS and ISIL or whatever. That's not this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So as soon as it comes back again with people who have this warped perspective of identity, and then we tell them, well, our identity is more, and automatically in their mind they go back to, well, Moors are Muslims or whatever, and then start thinking about Islam, and then now they start thinking, oh my God, they're going to classify me as a terrorist, and I don't want to be a Moor, when that's not even, nobody even brought up no terrorist. What are you talking about? Right? So I self-law and master is not Islam that we see out there, right? this could be relative. If it's relative to anything in Islam, it's relative to Sufism, which is esoteric Islam, right? And these people, Gnostics or Gnosticism, is esoteric Christianity. So if somebody's in this and they realize that something's up with this, I don't know if I want to be Christian or whatever like that, then they should automatically just jump to the spiritual nature of what the so-called slave masters got them to jump into, thinking that it had to do with, you know, spirituality, religion, or whatever. When really and truly, you know, they should be here. Even when they start, they should be here. In Gnosticism, right? Even Muslims, when they start, they should be here. Sufism, before they get into all this other stuff that people claim is Islam.
What about Muslims?
Right?
Them too? They should.
And then that's the same thing with like if we say Muslim, right? A Muslim is not a Muslim, right? A Muslim is a generic term for one that submits to the will of the Creator. Ants are Muslim. Because nothing can, right? Muslims more dealing with what their representation is if they study Islam, Sufism, even Islam, right? They should be classified as this if they're tying themselves to Islam. As soon as you start saying Muslim, you're talking about corporate, you're talking about slavery, you're talking about misrepresentation of religion under the guise of, you know, God and whatever like that, when that's not even what it's about if they're saying Muslim, right? And then when you look up Muslim in the dictionary, right, some are going to tell you no definition, see Muslim when you look up Muslim. And then some dictionaries are going to show you Muslim with no definition and say look up Muslim. But if you do your research on Muslim and Muslim, you'll see which one predates which one to know which one's legitimate and which one's modern. Appellation?
Cretan or appellation?
Cretan, yeah, do Cretan.
So Cretan, noun. 1 afflicted with cretinism. 2, an idiot. French Cretan, idiot, from Swiss French Creston. Christian, hence human being, hence deformed idiot. Brackets, who is nonetheless human, from Latin Christianus, Christian.
So anybody that classifies themselves as Christian,
Say they're an idiot.
they're an idiot. Why? Because there's no such thing as Christianity. It was founded by Roman Catholics or whatever. 325 AD, Nicene Conference, these guys made up Jesus and all that type of stuff. And then you're going to say that's what you're following? When 325 years after this guy, they made up this guy. And then that's what they're following. That's clearly stupidity. Clearly. It's not even nothing to argue with them. Because that's what they, like, it is what it is. Nothing personal. No different than if you say with Islam, find me some imam or whatever that's kissing black stones and stuff out there. You're not kissing no black stones and stuff like that. Get running around, stuff getting trampled and all that stuff. You know, imams on no high level of Islam doing that. They're sitting down watching these people run around and stuff. Right? And people don't get it. Appellation.
Appellation. Noun. 1, a name or title. 2, The act of naming. Then it says Middle English, appellation, from Latin, appellatio, from appellare, to appeal.
Right? So, name is just qualifying what a thing is, identifying it or whatever. Appellation is either a name or a title. So when we say appellation, we're saying appellation because we know that Moors have titles. And then our titles are Bey, El, De, Al, Ali. Right? That's our titles. So we say appellation opposed to name. Because again, when you say name, ties you back to Christianity, Cretinism, which is idiocy, and we are not idiots. So we should not have names or even attach ourselves with names or having names or being relative to names. Right? We shouldn't. Right? So we say appellation, because appellation is title, act of naming. The act of qualifying who you are. Because as Johnson and Jeffries and whatever, that's not really our name. That's somebody else's name that we've adopted as our name, and then we're going on as if it's like a adopted child going with the adoption parents as their parents. And don't recognize that, these people aren't, that's not, I'm adopted. Right? To appeal. Right? So we're making a proclamation that we are who our ancient foremothers and forefathers were, without doubt or contradiction, by having an appellation. We're saying no, we're not Johnsons and Jeffries and all that stuff. That's not who we are. We might have been classified as that. We might have been going through life with these names, thinking that that's who we are. But we've come to our senses now. Right? We have a prophet, just like everybody else out there that says that they're a nation or whatever like that. They got a prophet that came to them, told them certain things to help them get their life back in order after they fell from grace. Right? They have a holy book, just like everybody else out there has a holy book or whatever like that. So they can, they can have something that was presented by their prophet for them, not for everybody, but for them to get themselves back in order, back to the higher form of life, because we strayed away from reality into illusion. Okay? We have an appellation, which is based on title, which lets them know who we are. We have national headwear. Sikh got turban, Pakistani got their little dot that they put on or whatever like that. Jews have their little thing that they wear. Everybody has their thing that they do in order to prove who they are as far as their identity. Not just show some card or whatever. Right? They have things that back up their position. Right? We have a flag that's tied to a nation that as soon as it's seen, people already know it's not nothing we have to go prove, fight with people to get them to recognize whatever. Just go to United Nations, you'll see this there. Go Philly on the Parkway, see this there. It's not even something that we have to, expound on because it's something that's already acknowledged. Fez is already acknowledged. It's just been in other people's hands. So we've looked at it like it can't be ours if other people got it, right? It can't. Why is that tied to us? If the people who are saying, Illuminati, New World Order, they're the ones using it. Well, it's not their stuff. They never claim that it's theirs. They even tell you that, yeah, we got this from, the secret white brotherhood or whatever. This is not our stuff. We're just pretending that this is our stuff.
I don't know if you've noticed, but like sometimes when I search up like Google and I see like Illuminati and like devil foolishness and stuff like that, I see that's like I'm now noticing that star is in those pictures too.
Right.
Why does that happen?
Go through anything first.
Go ahead, Mark.
First and foremost, people need to understand when you hear the word Illuminati, the root word of Illuminati is illuminate. And if you look up illuminate is to enlighten. So if I illuminate the room, I flip the switch, I illuminate the room now has light in it. If I have knowledge, you see what I'm saying, and you're void of knowledge, and I give you that knowledge, I tell you about the knowledge, and you go search for yourself. You're now illuminated. Yeah. So what happens? Everybody's too stuck up into spookism. So they hear Illuminati, they see the star, and then they put the feminine fertility goat head and tell you that's the devil. You know what I mean? A lot of religious people get stuck on him like, oh, that's embellishment. When if they just use common sense, just hear the word Illuminati, means illuminate, so to enlighten. So there's a group of people running around basically saying that they're the enlighteners. And everybody's running away from it, and then a lot of our Moorish history is in it, and it's a good way to get our people away from it. You see what I'm saying? You put our information in it and then say, yo, tie it with some spookism, tie it with some devilishment, and our people will never go search that information and realize it's their own.
So it's meant to just distract you.
It's meant to keep you away from it.
Yeah.
So to me, I just tell people, I'm like, yo, Illuminati, everybody's scared of the Illuminati foolishness. Look up the word Illuminati, it comes from illuminate. Look up illuminate. Illuminate means to enlighten. You see what I'm saying? So basically, they're basically saying they're the torchbearers, who we know is us.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? We don't want to carry the information. We're the torchbearers throughout history.
And then when you research the Illuminati, they'll tell you that they're the keepers of the light. They're not even the ones that give it out or whatever. Yeah. They're just holding it just because, the people whose light it is, they want to be Negro, black, colored people, African, whatever, and they don't want to be who their ancient foremothers and forefathers were. But the people who are running the world, all of them are members of Illuminati. They got fezzes at home in their closet and stuff like that. They're going to their little rituals. They're ruling the world with our science that we don't want to use to govern ourselves. And then we're getting mad when people are violating us. Well, you deserve to be violated. You're not following your ancient customs or whatever.
And even on top of that, if you look at history, they say the Moors, we know the Moors brought the Europeans out of the Dark Ages. Now, if I'm a Moor and I'm bringing you out of the Dark Ages, I'm saying dark meaning there's no light. That means I must have came and illuminated Europe, which means the Moors are Illuminati. Right. If you want to put it in that context. Because we brought the Europeans out of the Dark Ages, which is documented history that nobody's going to argue with.
Yep.
Nobody could argue with it. You see what I'm saying? But like I said, they take that Illuminati, they put some devilish spookism on it, and our people's running away from the information now.
What did you say the goat heads represents again?
It's a science of fertility.
Okay.
Has nothing to do with no demon, no devil.
Okay.
It's just fertility.
Okay.
And then remember that the star is on the forehead of the goat when Baphomet's do it.
Yeah.
Right? The star's on the forehead. Right? Which is another sign of enlightenment. You know what I mean? So if this devilish goat or whatever has so much hindsight that his Packy dot is gonna be the star of Venus or whatever like that. You know what I mean? Which goes into now, you're going into like some celestial thing now. This is not just some, cut the chicken head off and squirt the blood or whatever. You know what I mean? Like we're talking celestial now. Because this is not, stars aren't in Earth plane. Stars aren't here. Stars are celestial. Right? So there's that level that people are detaching themselves from when they don't understand really what's going on with regard to, you know what I mean? And then, you know, they say New World Order, right? Well, for something to be new, there had to be something old that preceded it.
Right.
So what's the old world order?
Exactly.
And if these people are saying New World Order, then they have to have gotten something from the old world order in order to call themselves New World Order. Because everything that's, you know, use society as an example, anything that they say is new is really refurbished.
Nothing's new on the
Nothing's new. Like how people think, you know, so these people say New World Order and everybody's like, oh my gosh, you know, these guys just came about and they're studying the most ancient stuff that people haven't seen. They got books that people haven't even heard of or whatever like that. You know what I mean? They got King Tut stuff and Cleopatra stuff in their house worth $80 million and all that. And the people think that these people are just some Europeans, some white people that just want to do devilish stuff. They're some of the most high science studiers on the planet, so-called Masons. And everything that they're studying is really more science. But if they can get people to convince people that, you know, that has nothing to do with them, then the people will gravitate to all these other things that they assume has something to do with them. And then once you're dealing with assumption, you know, you're done for, because the biggest assumer is colonizer. You know what I mean? Like the biggest fraud is assuming, whether it's assuming jurisdiction, assuming authority. Once you start assuming, you're not dealing with facts. But remember that when they assume, they're doing that, you know, without their fez on, without their apron and stuff like that. You know, they put on a little suit or whatever, and then they assume or whatever. But when they go in their little chambers, they're not assuming there. They're dealing with facts there. They're dealing with the actual origin of civilizations. They're actually dealing with the origin of spirituality and metaphysics and, you know what I mean, all of these things behind closed doors. Out here, they're going to assume. Because majority of people out here are created based on assumption. Our people being called black is created based on assumption. Right? They would never, ever, ever say that black people had something to do with the Dark Ages or involved in it, because it's called dark. It's called Dark Ages. Black history has to do with black people. So dark, clearly, it should have to do with dark-skinned people. Oh no, that deals with light people, pale people. No tie whatsoever to Asiatics, but it's called dark though. But why? Because, oh, that's a negative time of their history. Okay, so then if they're going to say that the negative time of their history is called dark, and then we're going to say black history is our stuff, where, yeah, you know what I mean, black history every month and all that type of stuff, clearly we're messed up in that. We don't know what's going on. Because dark means negative stuff. No light. You know what I mean? And blackness is darker than dark. So how much light are you lacking? You're not saying that you're dark, but you're saying that you're black. You're void of light. You're absent of light. Right? Crazy. So I think we got one question or something. I recently proclaimed my nationality and have a nationality card, but haven't gotten the right to travel card yet. But I would like to know if it is wise to present a right to travel card when stopped. if I still have a state-issued driver's license and registration and tags. Also, once you get a nationality card, do we stop using our driver's license altogether, or is it dependent on the situation? I know the Prophet said do all new business in your new name, but I just wanted to know if there were times where it is more expedient to present the old stuff. Right? So, with regard to nationality card right to travel, if it's based on where people are at in their mind with regard to these things, right? I give either or if I'm stopped dealing with these people, right? Travel card or nationality card. Most times I'll go with nationality card over travel card, because the issue of travel is still based in what's your status. So somebody who's a national will never be a driver in their mindset, because nationals are travelers. Like, nationals aren't drivers, right? Only corporate people drive. If you have a license and state plates or whatever like that, province plates or whatever like that, and everything's in good standing and there's not any issues or whatever like that, then stay there, right? Don't go creating issues, creating yourself get kidnapped just because you found out about some stuff and it sounds good, or, oh yeah, there's really all caps on this, oh man, I don't want to use this or whatever. Like, because these people out here, they don't play. They got gun, jail, or whatever like that. Just look at all the stuff black guys are going through or whatever like that. You know that these people don't play, right? So if your stuff's legit, then, you know what I mean? Go with that for now until, you know, you get to the place or you get to the individuals that have this thing locked down to the point where you can get rid of all those things and use your Moorish version of those things. We don't diss the corporate instruments like that because we know how to live within contracts. So there's Moors that, you know, Omar, Supreme.
Yeah, I was gonna tell you. They got licenses, but if the go down gets to the go down, you know, nationality card is being presented, regardless of whether stuff's legit, not legit, or whatever like that. If it goes down, nationality card, right, travel card, that's what's being presented, right? Because that's based on their knowledge of what this is, what it involves, what is at risk. You know what I'm saying? You know, and like with Supreme situation, sometimes it might be best just give them a license if your stuff, you know, if you ain't got no issues or whatever, they want a license, you know, give them the license, you'll probably get out of there faster.
Is there ever a time where you giving them your nationality card or your traveler's card, is there ever a time where they have a right to not accept it?
You missed last class.
Yeah.
What?
Long story short, with me, happened twice, got kidnapped twice.
Okay.
The fact is that these highwaymen, these policy enforcers, they're not, well, out here it's more so, but where I'm at, they're not as familiar with it, right? So they're thinking it's fake ID, right? And the fact that these policy enforcers, they're not educated either. You see what I'm saying? They're laymen, they're dummies. Mm-hmm. So they take it upon themselves to act like they're the law. Yeah, you know what I mean?
The authority.
And what happens is they'll end up kidnapping you. You go through the whole court process, so-called court process, and they end up throwing everything out.
Right.
So in a situation where it's just like you end up getting kidnapped for no reason at all, other than them throwing the policy enforcer under the bus, saying that the policy enforcer should have knew better, or things just disappear. So the last time I got kidnapped out here for presenting my identification, I sent it on my necessary paperwork. Before I even made it to the so-called courthouse, they already withdrew all the charges. Which means like the whole time I spent, because they held me for like 4 or 5 days trying to figure out who I am and what I'm about, all that was for nothing. You know what I mean? So,
and that's with a license, with plates, with insurance, with whatever.
Damn.
That's with the stuff.
so it's a situation where if there's an easier route, I would suggest people, especially if you're new, because at that time I was really new. I was really green.
Right.
You know what I mean? I was like, I got my nationality, I'm gonna for more, like more. You ain't telling me nothing. You got the card. I think I'm gonna give you the card. Everything's looking great. You go to the card, it's like, I'm not accepting this. And basically, you know, and then from there it was like I got kidnapped. So, especially for people who are newer, I would highly suggest that you take the easier route in that sense, because more than likely you're gonna spend days in jail for no reason, because they're gonna end up throwing it out because they can't argue with the information, because it's real identification, and they can't argue with that. So my best advice would be, you know what, give them, if you have the license, like Kudo said, it's in good standing, give them the license. That doesn't all of a sudden stop making you a Moor now. Not a Moor now because you gave them the license. It's more like you have sense now, because you're like, for me, it's coming from me anyway, they're gonna end up dropping it or withdrawing it.
Right.
So why spend 5 days in jail?
It's not worth it.
You know what I mean? So
Exactly.
that's from my perspective, my experience.
Just to camelback on that, I think what you have to remember, this is a process.
Right.
The process is we are prisoners of war, and though everything's run corporately and administratively, they've still got their stuff in place to sort of run the show that they've been running.
Right.
And they haven't informed the lower downs, because if they were informed to the normal people, we wouldn't be in this problem.
Right.
Right? So that's kept to the upper stuff. So ultimately it's a process, and you have to, in your own mind, gauge as you're coming out of this process how you're going to undertake it. Supreme did that, as he said, because he felt he was standing on what was right. He now understood, like, that was his coming of age party, but at the end of the day, he knows that when he thinks back on it, he probably thinks he would have liked to have been in his bed for 4 days. You know what I mean? He's much more further along because of that. But what we all would suggest is just taking things, I liken it to anything else. It's like lifting weights. You know when you're lifting a 20-pound weight. When you see the 20-pounder there, I can lift that, right? You see the 100-pounder there, you haven't lifted that yet. That wouldn't be the thing that I would take to start. Get down and then start getting on the bench without any help and just start doing that. You might find the thing all up around your head. Right? So that's how I liken it. And you will know where you're at. You will. That's the beautiful part of this. Well, that's the beautiful part, but the dangerous part. Part of it is when you get it in your hand, you think that it's everything. And then very quickly you start to realize when you finally get to the point of awareness, you start to realize where you are on that process.
Right.
Because the more studying you do, you realize there's Moors out there who are driving with Moorish nationality plates. There are Moors out there who own property that don't pay mortgage or anything. That's their allodial property. They're at certain levels.
There's also Moors out there with licenses or whatever that beat tickets, using their Moor status. That they got a ticket under a license.
Right.
You know what I mean? But they still go out there when it's time to fight it,
Yeah.
and they fight it as a Moor, and they beat it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like what Brother Omar saying, it's a process, but the process is to like you're on the you're on the treadmill to get a quick sweat. You know what I mean? Right? You're supposed to be putting the speed up every little while.
True.
You know what I mean?
And ultimately,
you're supposed to be putting the weight up. You're not gonna stay at 20 pounds and lift 20 pounds for
Not
20
making
years.
Progress, yeah.
You know what I mean?
But let's say this too, what we are all doing this for ultimately is to bring ourselves back to where we should be. And let's say right now, and I was talking I think with Supreme about this before, that if you believe in the sort of the single theory that we were just born here and this is our life and then we pass and that's it, then that's your belief. But what I think we know is that our energies, this isn't our first time around, right? This is a process. This so-called life is a process. And what we're doing this for is maybe for the generations coming after us.
Yep.
So that when they go out there, the work that we've done, they do show that card and they get left.
Yeah.
We are going to be traveling around on our own plates
Mhm.
real soon. But that's going to come from activity.
Right.
Because remember, what we have to look at this as if a war ended and we're the prisoners of war. They can't tell us that straight up. But that's really what we are. And now we're trying to get back. We're trying to bring ourselves back to being equal and being able to live like normal human beings.
Live unmolested.
Unmolested.
Yep,
Yeah.
unmolested. And remember as well that the fight that we're going through is for the young and unborn, but we will see some wins in our exercising of this once we have our mindset correct, because our mindset's been incorrect. So all this, the whole concept of it's a process is really to rid our mind of nigger mentality and get ancient foremothers and forefathers mentality back again, so we could start exuding the right energy, so that when we put the card down, we give the card, they're just gonna accept it like it ain't nothing and go about their business, right? Because the energy that we're presenting it with isn't nigger that has this, black guy that has this, trying to get out of not paying something or not doing something or whatever. We're presenting it because this is who we are. This is our divine right to present ourselves as our ancient foremothers and forefathers were. Just like everybody else has that right. There was also a testimonial. Brother Rakael and his wife Honey Albay, they got in a little fender bender couple days ago or whatever. So with a lot of our people, there has to be a lot of slaps in the face or whatever for them to realize that this is real, this is legit. Like, regardless of what is presented, regardless of what's going on out there, regardless of DVDs that they watch, books that they read or whatever like that, it doesn't sink in until they get the personal slap or whatever. Right? So got in this little fender bender or whatever. So the guy from the Mazda dealership, they have their little hookup for whatever stuff, and the guy from the Mazda dealership sent his wife to shop on Moorish Road out here, right? Now, Moorish Road, like, there's actually like, is that how real that this is? That there's a road relative to this thing that I've been studying that I haven't been taking serious or whatever like that, right? So she goes to she goes to this place, gets a wake up call. Prior to that, she had some dental appointment or whatever like that, and then she goes into the place, and then they have this antique like bench or something like that, right? Chair or something like that. Going around the chair, we'll print the pictures out and send the pictures out. Going around the chair arm has engraved in it a circle 7, like Quran style circle 7 on the chair in some dental's office. That, again, seeing it and starting to question, like, okay, you guys admit that this is an antique chair. You don't know where it came from or whatever like that. You guys just have this chair in your office, and the chair's branded with a circle 7 on it. That nobody can answer, what's that doing there? How come that's there? Or anything like that. So when we get the pictures printed, we'll send that around. But just to show you that if, when Noble Ali said about, if you doubt that, I'm prophet and my stuff is legit or whatever, don't worry, go to those who know law, go in society. And as soon as you go into society, you're going to be bombarded by so much evidence that this is legit and this is real, that you would be a fool not to get on board with this. You would be a fool not to proclaim your nationality. You know what I mean?
I think that it's not even to the point of looking back to our history and our lineage as being one form of looking at something to connect to. Just looking at the fraud that's going on the corporate line, on the corporate edge, is enough to.
It's enough to, yeah.
I was just thinking before you were talking about
people.
Before I came into this, I was a black guy. I was, they call me mulatto. They call me all these names. I thought back to before. I used to think that there seemed to be something wrong with the way I was being treated, and I couldn't put my finger on it. But it seemed to have something to do with my color. And then it was backed up with so-called color.
Yeah.
It was backed up by stuff that you were watching on TV and all this kind of stuff that you were watching on the news. And then you were trying to find your way back. So then you're watching a movie like Roots. You're going to learning about Africa and all this stuff. So that's on the one level. But then when you look at it on, as I said, the corporate level, and then you start looking at it from a purely administrative process, you realize that even if you can't figure out what the history is of it, just the fact that something's going on corporately that is so fraudulent is enough to should be enough to make you want to get to the bottom of it. You know what I mean? Why does my license is in all capitals? And that's not how you spell. And why is everything that they do with me on that level in all capitals?
Yeah.
That alone is at the basis of everything,
Yeah.
right? Them treating you as a corporation, and then they can abuse you. No matter what is behind why they're doing that, right? And then, as I said, just the nature when I'm growing up and watching how the European or the white person is seen, there's something up.
Yeah.
They were being treated differently.
Yeah.
And and for the longest time, the lie was that it was because of this black and white thing and because of whatever. But as I said, when you start doing the studying, you realize, what did we do? What have we done? Right? In this present day to be treated like this. You start looking back, where did slavery come from? You know what I mean? They sort of talk about slavery, but then no one's really dealing with slavery. This is what I was talking about with Cujo. Even if you want to come from the perspective that we were slaves, that's done gone.
Yeah.
That's been done gone for how many years?
Yeah.
How come why are we still, the Germans have moved on after they killed all those Jews.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And the Jews have moved on.
And the Jews have moved on. Not to say they don't keep touching that's just to keep us in our place, though, too, right? That's to keep their fraud alive versus anything else.
Yeah.
Right? So.
Yeah.
And I think just so everybody's aware, like when Omar is saying like, why is my name in all caps? In law, if a name is in all caps, that signifies a corporation. That signifies a fictitious entity. If it's in lowercase, that signifies someone that's real, like a real flesh and blood person. So if you're looking at your driver's license and your driver's license or your passport is in all caps, then that isn't really you. That isn't you on the license. They might have your picture on the license and have your face and your likeness on the license, but if the name is in all caps, that's telling you that it isn't you. That's telling you that name is corporate. That name itself is a corporation.
And I just want to piggyback on what the rub behind that is.
Camelback.
Huh? The camelback. What did I say?
Say piggyback.
Oh, jeez.
Glitch in the matrix.
I thought I helped you there. I guess you're helping me out. What I realized, though, is that they can do whatever they want. The instant you sign your sign or put your autograph to it, and then step into that, they make you responsible for all of that. And that's the real rub behind it, right? The instant that you agree to that license being yours by signing it, and that's not a contract, that's a promise. That's a promissory note. That's how they get you. They get you to be responsible for their activity. By you signing off on it. Because it seems like it's you, because it's got your picture, and it seems to have your information.
Right, so that's why we say, anytime you sign anything with these people, on the line, you write all rights reserved, or you get a stamp it, and then sign over that. Because once you reserve your rights, that means you know about them. Because the only way you have rights is if you know about them. If you don't know about your rights, then you don't have any. So don't even talk about rights, talk about law or nothing like that. Right? So even if you are absent-minded of your rights, it's still an obligation for people to, when they have these contracts with these people, that they reserve their rights on the contract, because the contract is what makes the law that the corporate people deal with. So you don't want to sign something and then have them use that thing against you in a state of, send you something in red letters and then you panic and you just go second mortgage your house to go pay these people, when you could just send them a letter and shut them the hell up for a couple months. You know what I mean? Every time they come at you, you send them a letter and don't ever deal with them on the phone about anything. Because on the phone, they have the power to, push stuff and hang up on you, whatever like that. Make demands, make claims. In writing, they have to prove who they are when they're making claims. On the phone, they could assume. In writing, they have to sign something.
Well, and then also it's the evidence trail, right?
Yep, the paper trail.
Phone is hearsay.
Yeah.
Say he said that to me.
Right.
They're going to do some fraud, and they send it on a piece of paper. You've got the evidence.
Now you got the evidence.
As well as if they use the post office to perpetrate
their fraud.
It's a federal crime.
Right. Because with regard to the post office, quickly, that every piece of mail has to have a stamp on it to be legitimate mail. If it has one of those red whatever stuff on it, that's some fraud that somebody's running. You know what I mean? Everything and the stamp's supposed to be stamped at the post office. That's why they did away with stamps, and they only sell stamps in rolls now. And then they're in the drawer or whatever, and then they have the printer and they just print up and they paste the stuff on the thing and send your mail out. Because they're not really dealing as postmasters. Right? They're dealing as post clerks. Administrative jurisdiction. One more thing we wanted to put out there for all the Moors who are seeking higher education. There's a device that Moors are starting to put out there called the civilian. The civilian is like a little tablet that's filled up with law dictionaries, etymology dictionaries. There's like maybe 21 different references on this device. It has the full RVBA publications website on the device. You know what I mean? Some books and stuff like that. So if you're interested in acquiring the civilian tablet, you can contact Sister Sharice L at sherece.el@gmail.com. sherece.el@gmail.com, and get the information with regard to the civilian tablet. And also, just to put on the record, December 5th, we're going to be doing a panel discussion / class, if you will, on the relevance of Marcus Garvey's message in 2015. So that's going to be held at 25 Cecil Street.
Which is where?
It's like downtown somewhere around University and College area.
What time?
Its doors open at 4 o'clock. 25 Cecil Street is actually the United Steelworkers Hall. And there's going to be panel discussion as well as a little lecture by myself on the Moorish influence on Marcus Garvey, and that's December 5th. Contact information 647-289-2572.
Who's it with, this panel?
On the panel is Brother Caldwell Taylor, not sure who that is, Sister Thandwe, who was the first principal of the Afrocentric school, Colwyn Birchall, and myself. And then, no, it's free event, no cost. There will be vendors there, so please bring some fiat to support the vendors. And also January 3rd, 2016, 12 to 5 p.m. at 2467 Eglinton Avenue East, Don Montgomery Center, is our Noble Drew Ali Day celebration. Go and start doing the Scarborough thing. There's going to be a lecture by myself, Brother Seton Rabe, as well as our esteemed master educator, Jose Pimenta Bay, who last time he was here 4 years ago or something like that, so he was due for a visit. That's going to be, again, January 3rd, 2016, 2467 Eglinton Avenue East, Don Montgomery Center.
What time does it start?
12 to 5. And I believe that's it. That's about it for today. Any more questions or comments? Closing comments? Everybody's good? All right. So we'll convene next week. We just close out with prayer, and if there's for the new people before you leave, we got some handouts and stuff like that for you. 5 on the left, 2 on the right. Allah, Father of the universe.
Allah, Father of the universe.
Father of love.
Father of love.
Truth.
Peace.
Freedom. And justice. Allah is my protector.
Allah is my protector.
My guide. And my salvation. By night. And by day. Through His holy prophet. Noble Drew Ali. Ashe. His love. Peace and love, Morris.
We have a little issue here because we're planning to have